There was no reportable action on the first item. And yeah, the second item will be on open session.
Thank you. This meeting is cablecast live on Charter Communications, Cable Television Channel 8, and UT&T Uverse Channel 99. And it's being recorded and will be rebroadcast on the following Wednesday at 8 a.m. and on Saturday following the first rebroadcast at 1 p.m. on Charter Channel 71 and Comcast Channel 25. Meetings can also be viewed from the city's website, www.cityofcapitola.org. Our technician tonight is Jen Cameron. Thank you very much. And as a reminder, please turn off your cell phones during the meeting and sign your name on the roster if you would like to. You don't have to, but if you want your name spelled correctly in the minutes, it's a good idea. Additional materials, do we have?
Yes, we received 15 items for item 8B. There are 3 up there at the dais that were received late today, some of them less than an hour ago, one of them. So you have 3 copies. The others were distributed by email, and all copies are available in the back.
Oh, thank you very much. Additions or deletions to the agenda from our city manager?
Staff has no changes to the agenda this evening.
Thank you. Next item is public comments. So this is a chance for any of you to come up and talk to us about anything that's not on the agenda. If it's on the agenda, please wait till we get to it, and you're welcome to speak at that time, even if it's not a public hearing. So this is a time for you to get up and speak about anything you like for 3 minutes. Good evening.
Good evening. My name's Dave Fox, and I've lived here for 42 years, and I just wanted to say thanks for having a nice council.
No, okay.
Thank you very much.
Are you watching a different city council meeting? Is that what?
Okay, come back anytime.
Yeah, really.
A nice
comparison,
city,
by
nice
comparison.
city council, wonderful staff. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. Good evening.
Hi there. I am Elizabeth Jackson.
You want to talk about the zoning?
Exactly.
We're going to get to that pretty soon.
Okay,
Thanks.
so you don't want that right now?
No, we'll wait till we get to that. Anyone else want to speak?
I will.
Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Rob Kawamoto.
You want to speak about zoning?
No.
Okay.
Well, it may or may not. I don't know. Wednesday morning, I live on 42nd, which is next to 41st on the commercial buildings. And I noticed at about 7 o'clock or maybe 6 sometimes, there's a blower that the commercial buildings, the parking lot, are cleaning. I didn't know if you're aware of that. I just thought I'd bring it to your attention.
Over 41st Avenue?
Yes, correct.
They're allowed to start.
I believe it's 8 a.m.
Commercial is earlier than residential on the leaf blowers.
It could be. I thought it
We'll
was
have to
8,
check
but-
that. We did that a few years ago.
Please,
Yeah.
it wakes
Thank
me
you.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can sure hear it there when it's quiet. Yeah, thank you very much. Any other public comments? Then this is the time for city council comments for announcements. Ed, do you have anything?
I have nothing.
Jock, do you have anything?
Not related to Capitola, but the county is developing a strategic plan, so go to the county website and you could enter your comments. And I haven't done it yet, so I can't tell you exactly what it is, but it's your input for the strategic plan of the county. And, you know, sort of following up on Dave, so I was having a rather interesting conversation with someone, and I was just saying, you know, it's really hard to come up with good things about something, and we were talking about all the negative things at Capitola, and I said, you know, so we sort of went on, and there's a couple of things I'd like to throw out that is really neat. I know a couple of people out in the Jewel Box. I could go to their places, like they have a living room in their garage or a living room in their front yard. I could go there, and I know they'll be there, and I could sit and talk with them, and it's great because everyone gathers. But I don't know any place where that happens. I mean, you know, that's really neat. Capitola is one of these places where, you know, I'm an ex-cab driver, right? And it took me a while to get used to how people stopped and were very polite at the intersections, and they let people take a right turn or a left turn. It's like, there's a lot of good things about this city. And, you know, this is something that you sort of get used to after a while because, hey, why can't every place be like this? And I'm talking to a neighbor up the street, and people pass by, they wave to him or they wave to me, and no matter where I go in the city, there's always someone that does that, you know, and I know everyone up here probably has that experience, and probably many of you in the audience, and that's the town we have, and that's the town we like. Thanks.
Mike, do you have any announcements?
I do. This Saturday at noon, Surfing Santa will come in on the beach in Capitola. Longtime tradition. It'll come in at noon. And as is this particular Santa's tradition, he will stay on the bandstand and talk to children until there are no more children left to talk to. We tell everyone it's 12 to 5. I have seen our Santa sit there well past 5. He never lets a child be disappointed. It's really an amazing thing to watch. Our Art and Cultural Commission last week interviewed and saw samples from many artists. So we will be bringing you the new sculpture, the climbable sculpture for Esplanade Park. We chose an amazing one, and I'm sure you'll like it. And also we chose a muralist for the skate park. Taylor Reinhold and Jimbo Phillips have been chosen by the Art and Cultural Commission. It is some iconic art, and I'm sure you'll all love it. Finally, the plein air event was held 2 weeks ago, and we now own 2 new pieces of art to go up on the walls of our chambers. Our second place winner, and this was done by Barbara Tapp. Lovely, and I believe it's called The Spirit of Capitola. And the other, this one was done by Wendy Brayton, and it's called Morning Commute. And it just amazes me that people can. Do I have it upside down? No, there it is. Good. Morning commute, and it's a commute that none of us have seen, but maybe 2 in the morning with lights. But she was out there pretty early, so maybe this worked. And it's just amazing what these people can do. In 2 days, they turn out 6 to 10 pieces of art that are amazing. But I'm amazed at all art that doesn't look like stick figures, because that's kind of my speed. Remarkable artists. So we own those 2 pieces, and they received the cash awards to own these, and a good time was had by all. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. That was wonderful.
Is number 2, is that the Kinsler House, or is that?
I can't really tell. It says a little sign, Cottage by the Sea.
I think that's it.
It's a watercolor. Could be Kinsler's house. Yeah.
That's pretty. That's
And
beautiful.
the now famous Capitola Lighthouse
Now
on
famous
land.
redone intersection.
Yeah. Oh,
Really redone intersection.
Doesn't it look nice since we'd finished the whole
Yes,
thing
it's
and not have
re-asphalt,
not
yeah.
have it half done? Yes, yes. Thank you.
Kudos to you, Steve.
This is
Stephanie brought it up.
great.
Well, I
And
mean, but, he gets it done. He gets it done.
Yeah, he gets the credit for doing it.
I know.
it is impressionistic, so it's reality, but
I think
it's still
like
nice.
4 lanes, isn't it?
Easily.
Do you have any announcements, Kristen?
Yeah, just briefly, echoing on what Councilmember Bertrand had said, I was at the strategic planning meeting for the county this last Saturday morning in Aptos. It's a really great opportunity to be involved in shaping what Santa Cruz County would look like moving forward. So they held a SWOT analysis where we look at the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats facing the county in the coming years. It's really an opportunity to participate. It's not just 2 hours of sitting and listening. It's really 2 hours of being involved with your community. So I would highly recommend that you attend one if you're able to do so. The next one is November 28th at Simpkins Swim Center from 6 to 8. And then there's one on the 30th at Pacific Elementary School in Davenport, also from 6 to 8. And then finally, the Community Action Board is having their annual donation drive for their care kits that they put together for the homeless. So they're collecting socks, hand warmers, rain ponchos, jackets, anything that you are able to provide. You can drop it off at any Community Action Board agency or the main office in Watsonville, or if anyone's interested in donating, you can send me an email and I'll come pick it up from you and make sure it gets where it needs to go.
Thank you very much. The Gray Bears is having their annual holiday dinner this year on Sunday, December 3rd from 11:30 to 1:30. And I would like to encourage any of you to go with friends and celebrate the community there, or go and celebrate the community with your friends and help serve. It's an amazing experience to go down there. And the people in the kitchen fix incredible amount of wonderful meals, and then people are seated and they serve the people on the floor of the Civic Auditorium. And when those people have finished, they leave and another group comes in, and we seat them, and they're served, and it's wonderful. So if you have any extra time or energy that day and you want to help be part of a really wonderful community event, even though it's in Santa Cruz, it's really a countywide event, and it's wonderful. So that's Sunday, December 3rd from 11:30 to 1:30 at the Civic Auditorium. Okay, now we'll go on to our consent calendar, which is a list of relatively minor items that we take with one motion unless someone would, staff comments.
Just very quickly, I wanted to update the council on the Monterey Bay Community Power. You'll know that I sit on the operations board for this new JPA. For those of you who haven't heard yet, we will be rolling out a new publicly owned community power company here in Santa Cruz County, along with Monterey County this spring. The board recently met and we entered into our first power purchase agreements. So it's moving at a really fast pace. It's a really exciting time. For any community member who's interested in learning more about it, you can just type in Monterey Bay Community Power into your search engine and get a lot of information on the website, sign up for any emails or information about it. But it's in its infancy and it's moving fast. It's really an exciting process.
Thank you. Treasurer's comments, I'm sorry.
I'd just like to point out that we are going to talk about the zoning today, and then we've been working on this since 2014, just so you keep that in mind. We have been getting invoices from Ben Noble Consultants. It's a lot of staff time. So I know you're trying to wrap this up, but keep in mind that this is an expensive effort.
Thank you very much. Any other comments? Then we'll go on to the consent calendar, and these are items that are relatively minor. Would anyone from the audience like to pull anything for separate discussion, or anyone on the council like to pull anything?
I will move consent.
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next item is general government. Number A, consider the 2017 Community Development Block Grant Application, also known as CDBG.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. This item is a request for the City Council to authorize staff to submit an application for a CDBG grant in the amount of approximately $2.4 million. The grant would be intended to fund our affordable housing programs, both our home rehabilitation program and our mortgage assistance program. And in addition, we're also applying for funds to improve the Clare Street project, which is a long-standing CIP project which has been unfunded. So those funds would help us accelerate completion of that project. And that concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Councilmember? Yes. Yes.
Just wanted to break down how much is for the housing and how much is for Claire's.
So it's $500,000 for the affordable housing program, split $250,000 each for the rehab and mortgage assistance. The balance of that is $1,930,700 for the Clare Street project.
Is that project doubled from? Is that Steve, help me out there.
We've been building it for 20 years.
I seem to remember it was about a $700,000 project, but correct me where I'm failing.
No. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Conservative estimate for first things, but we are now including completely repaving Claire's, which has never been part of the estimate before. That is a long stretch of street and all new paving going in. So prices have gone up and the scope of the project's grown.
And it still includes the traffic calming and all that other stuff that we had. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you for that.
Steve, is this going to be the whole extent of Claire's? Because it was going to be half the project at one time.
The grant is for the entire project from Wharf Road to 41st. As we move forward, we'll just continue to coordinate and see where the sanitation district is with ripping up from 46th to Wharf. We may have to build it in phases because we don't want to build it and have them rip them up. But if we get the funding, we'll work that out. But we are getting funding for the entire project.
Okay, great. So we have to coordinate with the sanitation down there at Wharf Road. Okay.
Can you look at a less expensive crosswalk than the one that we put on Capitola Road? Or maybe they've all gone up since then. That was expensive.
Yeah, I mean, that one needed the flashing lights. It really did, because it's 5 lanes of traffic there that are crossing on here. We're going to do it with roundabouts and Center Island, so the actual crossing distance is quite short, so we won't need the flashing lights there.
It's not a very attractive crosswalk. That's my point. I mean, and it does its job. Everybody gets very excited when all those lights go on, but it's not very attractive, and it was all very expensive. So maybe we can do something to look a little nicer and be less expensive.
Happy looking at it. On Claire's, that'll work.
Yeah. Any other questions? Public, would anyone like to ask a question about this item? Then I'll bring it back to the council. And
Motion to approve staff recommendation.
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, the next item is item B, to introduce the zoning code update that, yes, we all have been working on for years and years and years. We're getting tired of it, but it's so important that it's worth it to take the time to do it right and get it right, because we're going to be living with it for a long time until we do this again. So thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. This is going to be kind of an introduction, and we're not going to be voting on anything tonight or making any decisions about anything, I don't think, tonight. And we will go over the issues that are identified in the staff report, and then see what other issues that council members would like to discuss and what issues the public would like to discuss. So we'll be having several meetings going over all of these things. So let us know, if there's things you want to talk about. We'll try to figure out what meeting we'll do that with, so that you'll have plenty of time.
Madam Mayor, if I could suggest, I think most of the people here are probably here because of Capitola Road between 42nd and 45th. So maybe we could take that as a piece first and discuss it. And this way, we don't have to drag everyone through the next 3 hours of zoning just to talk about a particular item that's of interest.
So shall we start with that? Katie, you want to give us a little introduction about that? Or Rich, do you want to start
I think
out
we're
with that?
having some technical difficulties. If we could have a moment.
Okay.
Thank you.
Talk amongst yourselves.
Well, I have another public announcement while we're waiting that I forgot. The Seniors Council, which is the area agency on aging for Santa Cruz County, which receives the federal and state fundings for the Federal Older Americans Act and the California Older Americans Act, had a workshop last month to talk about priorities for the senior community here in Santa Cruz County. And from that, from all the issues identified and for possible things we can work on, they're going to have a series of workshops. So it's called the Solution Summit Work Groups. And they're going to talk about various topics starting Monday, November 27th at the Community Foundation office, the Community Bridges office, at in the county office at Emmeline Street, various locations. So if you're interested in helping shape the future for senior programs, the ever-increasing senior population, and our needs, and transportation, housing, health care, socialization, all kinds of things, we're trying to put together a county plan to address those things so that we can have some plans in progress as the community ages and as we have these increased needs of our citizens in our community. So if you'd like to be part of that, Jacques would like to add to that.
Sure. So as some may know, I'm on the senior council, and I've been on for 4 or 5 years, I think. I'm also the chair of the advocacy group, which is taking on some of the tasks that were identified by the by the Solution Summit. So the main issue for us is having a clear engagement with the community at large, since it has a great impact on funding for many of the programs that we use. And that engagement, we want to work out better channels of communication with the seniors in this area so that there's a better understanding of the issues. One that's coming up right now is core funding, and that's greatly affecting the various programs that are providing a tremendous amount of services to the seniors in this area. So the advocacy group is basically working on a plan to engage on local issues, the ones that affect us directly, and statewide issues. Basically, those are important because those fund a lot of the programs that we have here in Capitola and Santa Cruz. Thank you.
Thank you. We're ready now. Thank you very much. Thank you for your patience.
Okay, yes, thank you for your patience. So as Mayor Harlan introduced, this evening we'll be going over the adoption hearings for the City of Capitola zoning code. I'm going to quickly go over the history of how we got to where we are tonight, and then we'll jump. The first issue actually is the Capitola Road item. So if you don't mind, with a brief overview of the process to date, and then we'll jump right into it. So back in November of 2010, the city initiated the general plan update, the zoning code update, and a climate action plan update. In the beginning, they were working simultaneously on the efforts towards the general plan and the zoning. The GPAC was created in 2011, And there were many community workshops and public surveys that took place during the 3 years. Next, in June of 2013, the City Council directed staff to complete the general plan prior to the new zoning code. And in June of 2014, after a year of focused attention on the general plan, in June of 2014, the general plan was adopted. So then we started out on the update of the zoning code. And with that, we started out with stakeholder and public outreach. That began in August of 2014 through November. We had a survey that was out there publicly, and we also had different stakeholder groups that met here at City Hall, and we got info on the existing code and what they'd like to see changed and the zoning map. From the information we gathered from the public, we created an issues and options document, which outlined 12.5 issues and options that needed to be addressed in the new zoning code. So we worked on that from January through October of 2015. Quite a few public hearings on those items. Next, the draft code. The first draft code came out in February of 2016. The second code was in January of 2017. And following the current code in June of this year. So lots of public hearings throughout this process. I think there's been about 40 public meetings or so, including the issues and options paper that was reviewed and the multiple codes. Currently, we're moving forward with the adoption hearings. So Planning Commission on September 6th of this year, forwarded a unanimous positive recommendation to the City Council. And we're going to be talking about 2 zoning map items that we discussed with the Planning Commission, as well as 5 other items, other topics that were brought up that were received from the public during the public comment period. And the next thing to look forward to once we do have it adopted is the submittal to the Coastal Commission, so that the zoning code will apply to those areas within the coastal zone. So here we are today in the adoption hearing. The zoning code is broke up into 5 sections. There's the enactment and applicability. We've got the zoning districts and overlay, which specifies how things can be developed in the specific zones. There's part 3 is citywide standards that apply to standards that are like fences, how we measure height and floor area ratio citywide. And then part 4 is the permits and administration, so how we carry it out, what is the process. And then part 5 is the glossary and terms. Overall, there's been a lot of new improvements to the zoning code. The current one we have, it was originally written in 1975, and there have been minor modifications. There have been many modifications along the way, but this is the first real comprehensive update of our zoning code. There's a new user guide to explain how to utilize it in the beginning. It's been reorganized and written in plain English to make it more user-friendly. There are more tables and graphics. And then the definitions have been made more clear. Additional improvements is within the mixed-use district. We now have new building form and placement standards and character design standards. Design permits, that we've created new thresholds so that not every little change to a home has to be reviewed at the Planning Commission level. There's certain things that can be approved administratively, but whenever you go to a second story or have a visible addition on the front, it would go to Planning Commission. So new thresholds. Historic preservation, this section has been, there's much more clarity on what the process is. And then non-conforming in uses and structures has been updated. We had a sunset clause in there that's now been updated with an incentivized program to bring non-conformities to be in better standing and work with their neighborhoods. So on June 1st, we initiated the 60-day public review period, went through July 31st. We've kept, the public was welcome to continue to submit comments after that period, but that was the official 60 days. During that period, we had 15 members of the public submit comments. The SoCal Water Creek submitted significant comments to us, as well as 2 council members. And as I stated earlier, on September 6th, the Planning Commission reviewed those comments. They went through a list of items that they wanted to discuss. They provided direction. That's going to be basically the topics for this evening. And we have since then received more public comment, which you've received in your packet. and we've kept a log of all the public comment received. And tonight we'll jump into our first item, which is Capitola Road. Okay, so that's an overview of where we've been, and now here we are. Okay, so the zoning map. The first two items are regarding the zoning map. The first is Capitola Road rezone from neighborhood commercial and professional office to community commercial. So within the zoning update, neighborhood commercial and professional office are, the CN is neighborhood commercial. That will be in the new code, the mixed use neighborhood, MUN, and professional office will no longer be a zone within the updated code. So we did receive public comment regarding this area, and the concern was with the increased height and the intensity of the land use. I wanted to kind of step back and give you an overview of what is it zoned for today. So as you can see along 41st Avenue, the CC zone has a height limit of 40 feet currently. The CN zone has a height limit of 27 feet, and that's just coming from the CC to the CN. And then as you go further east, the PO zone has a height limit of 35 feet. So I don't think that has been clear. Within the PO zone, there is a height limit of 35 feet or 3 stories. So, and then it drops down again to the CN height of 27. So when you look at this, along 41st Avenue, there's a higher height of 40 feet, drops down to the CN zone of 27, back up in the PO to 35, and then back down to 27. And this was actually a topic, I went back as the public comments came in this week, trying to get an idea of how did we get to where we are today within our zoning map. And this was actually highlighted as an issue within when the 41st Avenue Visioning Program project was put together. So I have a slide on that. Another thing to realize about this area is it's really a transition zone. So where I have along 41st Avenue, that blue circle, it's a 4 lanes along 41st Avenue. Then as you come down Capitola Road, there really is a change in feel as you experience this road headed towards the village. So in the area in front of the CN, it's 2 lanes on either side. And then you drive by the PO and the island, the median comes into play, and then it drops down to a 1-lane street. So it really is a transition from a taller area that goes down to the neighborhood commercial, and also it's your picture of what a road diet would be when you're trying to go from an area with many lanes down to a smaller area and have more of a neighborhood feel. So it is a transition area within our city. So how did this change come about in the height and zoning? So first there was the 41st Avenue revisioning plan in 2011. This was part of the general plan update. Then the general plan land use map was adopted in 2014. And now we're looking at the current zoning map, in which the general plan land use map is utilized as the basis of the new zoning map. So within the 41st Avenue baseline study, one of the first studies that came out of this area was always part of that study. So you can see the black line, hatched line around the study area, and it identified this area, this portion of Capitola Road as local commercial. And this is what I was speaking of before. In the baseline study, they highlighted the fact that the different heights along Capitola Road and between professional office and neighborhood commercial, and some inconsistencies in the zoning map. And you can see in the last sentence it says the revisioning plan will identify needed revisions to the existing development standards to address these issues. So this was back in 2011 an area of concern within the baseline study. When the general plan came out, there was a summary of what was found within the 41st Avenue revisioning study. And the area that we're speaking about tonight was identified as part of the South 41st Avenue to encourage residential serving commercial, residential uses, and mixed-use development to increase pedestrian activity and support local businesses. So when the zoning map was created, there's regional commercial to the north of Capitola Road along 41st Avenue, and then more of a, the CC zone, more of a local commercial south of Capitola Road, and also extending to the east at Capitola Road in the area that's circled. The revisioning plan also identified further to the east that Capitola Road would strengthen the connection between the village and improving the pedestrian bicycle connection. So, and then encouraging uses that, as you go into the residential area, are compatible. So on the top of this slide, you can see the general plan land use map, and this is what was adopted in 2014. So the area of concern is highlighted, and it was within the general plan land use map identified as community commercial. And then within the proposed zoning map, it reflects exactly what was put in the general plan land use map as community commercial. The existing zoning map is on the top of this slide, so you can see where it was CN and PO, and then the proposed zoning map at CC. So the next question is, what is the development potential now that we have new zoning in the on the zoning map? So this table goes through the differences between the zones. So there's the CN and the PO zones under existing, and then the proposed is the far right column for CC. There's really, there is a difference in height. So from CN at 27 feet, extending all the way to 40 feet in the CC zone. So 27-foot height, then the PO at 3 stories, and then 40 feet. The floor area ratio is the same throughout. So on all the total maximum square footage you could build is the same for all 3 zones. The front setbacks are similar. The CN has a 15-foot setback. The proposed CC has a 15-foot setback. The PO is pretty unique. It's a standard we typically don't use in Capitola. It's 5% of the lot area. It's hard to gauge exactly what that is. It'd be depending on the lot size. So it's a standard that I don't think is a great standard for the code moving forward. So having a setback would be similar to the 15 feet. The side yards, again, first floor is 10% of the lot width, second floor is 15. These are similar standards. Again, in the CC zone, if you're next to adjacent, there's an increased standard of 15 feet that's required from the side. And then rear yard is similar, that it's 20% in depth or in the CN, and then the PO would match the adjacent residential setback, and CC is 20 feet adjacent to when you're adjacent to residential. So the big factor in this table of development potential, that's the differences between zones, is really in that first row of height. So I think we've realized that's definitely a concern with the letters that came in this week, and that'll be, I think, the majority of the discussion this evening. One other thing to be aware of, in the CC zone, there's now a residential transition standards that are required. So as I stated in that table, there's increased setbacks if you're adjacent to residential. There's also a daylight plane required. So in the rear yard, where you have a 20-foot setback requirement, you would measure from that 20-foot setback, you'd go up 25 feet, and then there'd be an angle of 45 degrees in which you'd have to keep within that setback. So it's really to ensure that light and daylight gets to the neighboring properties. And then also is the landscape requirement of a 10 feet minimum along a residential property. So the adjacent properties of residential were considered, and that those regulations are in the draft code. Also within our staff report, there was an attachment of giving scenarios of the 3 largest properties along Capitola Road and what the impacts could be. In looking at the parking analysis and kind of providing for a floor area ratio of 1 and at maximum build out, the sites alone in our parking analysis could not handle the parking need requirement that would have to be met. So this is just under a floor area ratio of 1, the developer would have to, at that point, probably be investing into a parking garage or some, in order to get to a maximum floor area ratio, which gets very expensive. And then another factor is that with the setback requirements, on average, they're losing about 10% of the area that's buildable on those lots. So as they develop more, it tends to get much more expensive because at that point they're parking the cars on multiple levels and just running out of site area to work within. Another reminder is that the Dharma site is a site that's listed within our housing element as an opportunity site. Within our housing element, it estimates that approximately 19 units would go into this site. So with that, hopefully you've got a clear understanding of what is today under the zoning regulations, what you could build, and what if it were to stay in the CC zone as proposed within the draft zoning code, what the potential would be. And so you've got multiple alternatives that were listed in the staff report, and you could do a mix of those. And here we talk about retaining the community commercial zone as it is in the map today, or you could attach reduced height restrictions within that portion of Capitola Road, or increase setbacks within that portion of Capitola Road. Another avenue you could go down is that during any significant redevelopment projects to be processed in that portion of Capitola Road, that they be required, if they go over a certain height limit, to enter into a development agreement with extensive public outreach to ensure that there's a high public involvement. And then, of course, you can always direct staff to replace the CC zone as it's written in the proposed zoning map with mixed-use neighborhood, and that would bring the height limit down to 27 feet, and that would require us to update the general plan land use map. But as you know, there's been a lot of public concern on this item, and this is why we have this process to work out these items. So now I'm finished with my presentation. And
Thank you very much. Hope everybody understood all that. It's kind of a lot. I didn't catch it that we changed the CC in the general plan, or I would have highlighted that at that time, because I knew I would have realized this was going to come up. So, that was sort of my fault for not catching that, or other people not highlighting that. But the other problem is, in reading this, it's not highlighted. It's not discussed in here. So maybe we can do a better job of that. But anyway, we're going to ask a few questions, and then we will open it up to the public to speak to us. So questions, please.
Katie, we also have the ability to take combinations of things from this list, correct?
Correct.
So we could set a maximum height limit, period, and have a development agreement, extensive public process for every single individual parcel, could we not?
Yes, you could.
Could we go back a slide? So I understand this. There's the Dharma site. They have as much parking as they need or required to have, correct?
There's other businesses there.
Right. So the calculation right now, it's parked according to our standards right now?
I have not done the analysis on that.
But the floor area ratio right now, is that about as big a footprint as a building could be?
No, under the floor area ratio, I would say that they're probably at 40%, and they could go up to 1, so they could more than double that building.
And still have the parking?
And they'd have to meet parking, so there's the challenge.
Okay, so if they were to double the size of that building, they would now no longer have the parking.
Correct.
If they were to put a second story on that and double the floor area ratio by making it 2-story, they might still not have the parking.
Correct.
Okay.
But they're required to have the parking for any expansion.
First, I just wanted to understand the tension between, thinking about maximum build out and all the other requirements that someone would have to do, making it not possible to do the things. And I just talked about 2 stories. 3 stories would be incredibly challenging on this. And that's the biggest parcel, the biggest private parcel, with the exception of DMV, which doesn't belong to us, belongs to the state, and we really have nothing to say about that property, do we?
We do not.
So
does the state own it?
The state owns the property.
They lease from someone?
No, the state owns the property. So the state could build that DMV building as large as they wanted, and we couldn't say anything.
That's correct.
I'm very comfortable now, thank you. That really made me feel good. Okay, and can we go back another one? I think we showed the several different parcels along there. So really, when you look at it, the AAA lot, the Dharma lot, and I guess it's not the AAA lot, but it's the one next to it with the dental office. And so those are probably the two largest buildings, or the three largest buildings on that whole area, not counting DMV. And they all suffer the same challenges with regard to floor area ratio, parking, and the like. Okay.
Correct.
Great. Because if I look at the building on the very corner of 45th, that looks to be, a lot more than just a 0.5 FAR right now.
Mm-hmm.
That's covering quite a bit more. So that building itself probably wouldn't be able to go to 2-story just because of our FAR. It would bring it over 1. Correct? If that, let's assuming that building is a 0.6 FAR right now. They couldn't even go to 2 stories over the whole building because it would violate our FAR requirements.
Why don't you explain to the audience what that means?
Floor area ratio means you total all the square footage of both floors, and that total square footage of both floors can't be more than the gross square footage of the lot. So if you built a 3-story building, it would be 3 times the footprint, and it could then only cover the maximum of 1/3 the overall square footage of the lot. So that building starts to get real skinny and tall. And I can't even do the math for 4 stories. I don't even know where that could happen, but I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Any other questions? That was in the weeds. Yes.
I went in the weeds, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, I have a question. So in the general plan, there's a description of the commercial and industrial designations, and in terms of the regional commercial CR and the community commercial CC, the last line in the paragraph talks about FAR. The maximum permitted FAR in the CR designation is 1.5, with a FAR of 2.0 permitted if special criteria are met as established in Action LU 9.3. And for community commercial, it says basically the same thing, that you could go up to a maximum of FAR, and keeping in mind what Michael was just talking about, we would definitely have a lot of potential for height and bulk. And it says it could go up to a potential FAR of 2.0. So if you go to Action, which they're referring to, LU 9.3, properties along 41st and 41st Capitola Road intersection with regional commercial commercial land use designation may be developed at a maximum FAR of 2.0. So basically there's special conditions that would be met to allow for that increase to 2.0. And I haven't seen those special conditions detailed, so I can understand why people in the audience and people in the neighborhoods are worried. Can you answer that question?
Yeah, Councilman Bertrand, that provision that you just cited does not apply to Capitola Road. It applies to 41st Avenue.
They mention this Capitola Road intersection, and then they talk about, okay, so you're saying it's only at the intersection that you could go up to 2. So even though it's CC, and this paragraph here says it can actually go up to 2.0, it's only at that intersection.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
41st Avenue.
Up to Whole Foods. Whole Foods could be 2.0.
Yes.
It's CC. Yep.
Okay, thanks.
Ed.
I'm going to try to ask a simple question. You can go back to that slide and just want clarification because I think it's covered here. Even though the CC district changes throughout the city, in this area of designation, we could establish our own height limit and still maintain the CC designation.
Correct.
Thank you.
I have another question.
Okay, Jacques.
So when I'm trying to understand this problem, the first thing that strikes me is when you're looking at the zoning map, CC is in basically along the 41st corridor, Capitola Road, and that's a major portion of the CC. And then you go to Bay Avenue, and that's CC also. And I think there's one other, I forgot right now. But when I look at those two areas, there's a major difference, and that's, I think, one reason why I'm troubled. So along Bay Avenue, you're not bordered by intense residential use. It's in the area, that's true. But when you're on Capitola Road, you have very intense use north and south of Capitola Road. You have individual homes, you have duplexes, you have all sorts of residential use and the traffic and everything that comes because of that. So I think structurally, we have an issue here. It's almost as if the CC on the Bay Avenue area where Nob Hill is, et cetera, is a different animal than the CC along Capitola Road. And in a sense, I'm willing to say that we should treat it as a different animal and pull out the CC portion along Capitola Road and look at that differently and come up with criteria that reflect in concert with what the general plan, and I'll get to that later, in concert with what the general plan dictates in terms of preserving residential areas, being in the flavor of the Capitola experience, et cetera.
Do you have a question?
Yes, and I'd like you to comment, sorry, thank you very much. I'd like you to comment on, do you feel that these areas are exactly the same and we should treat them exactly the same, or do you feel that we should look at them a little bit differently because one is very close to intense residential and one is close to a river, the highway, and the post office and stuff like that is definitely not surrounded by intense residential? Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Bertrand. I think obviously each of these areas do have their differences. But I would point out 41st Avenue on the east side, or the east side, does back up to residential, not unlike what we have on Capitola Road. So there's often an interface between residential and commercial uses, and in fact, I think we want to promote that so that it's more walkable and that you're able to go and get your groceries without driving across town. With that said, we certainly have the ability to customize our zoning regulations to fit how we want development to proceed in the future. I think to do that, though, you really need to recognize what is it that you want to accomplish. You know, during the presentation, Katie pointed out that the differences between the CC and the CM zone, which aren't very drastic. There is a difference in height, which we've talked about. Most of the setbacks, the floor-area ratio, those are key development standards. They're the same. Parking is not affected. So then you're into use tables. So those are really the key differences here in the types of uses and your heights. And there's a variety of different ways we can deal with the height. We could set, you know, different height standards. We could have enhanced setbacks. You could look at doing different processing, or you can change the zone. So there's a suite of options at your disposal to deal with those issues.
Okay. Can I make a comment, please?
No, it's just questions.
Yeah, there's a question. So I'm sort of following up what Mike said, our City Councilperson Mike. So because of these options, we could actually look at that area differently and say we want to come up with a tailored prescription or a tailored approach to that so it actually meets the needs of the residents in that area and the commercial needs of that area, and also takes into account things like traffic and the impact, any kind of new business that would come in there. Is that correct? We could pull that out and look at it separately.
You could.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to hear from the public now, so please come up, line up, and get in line and come and give us your thoughts about this this evening. We really appreciate it that you came down tonight. So come on up and sign in, form a line so we won't have to wait. We'll just give you your turn and one after another, and we'd love to hear what you think. Good evening.
Hi. My name is Jeff Perez. I'll sign in real quick.
Pardon?
My name is Jeff Perez. Do you want me to sign in?
Yes, please.
So I just have a couple things to say. It is sort of confusing what everybody's talking about here. I don't know if it's like all commercial, if there's a bunch of residential stuff going on with these 4-story buildings or all this stuff we're talking about. But I will say I live half a block away from Mayor Harlan, and you know, there's a lot of times during the day and throughout the year that it's tough to get to anywhere around town. It's like it's great that, yeah, we can walk to get our groceries and stuff like that because you have to. Because there's so much traffic and people are using 42nd Avenue as a shortcut, blowing the stop sign by my house to where it's difficult, you know. Luckily my son's old enough to know that, you know, to stay out of the street because it's tough. But I will say that I think our community is so impacted right now that if it does involve, if any of this involves like more residential, like 4-story, like residential buildings or whatever, you know, I'd like to keep the impaction down. Because it's already so impacted, you know, I don't think we need to like have a ton, you know, a bunch more availability for people to move more people in there, because every time I go to Claire's Road to get to 41st to access the highway or whatever, it's backed up beyond that, and everybody's blocking the intersection. I can't do it. I'm trying to get my son to baseball is a nightmare, to go to SoCal High or whatever every day, in the late afternoon or whatever. It's crazy. So I think that there's enough impaction. As far as like businesses and stuff, I mean, with the parking, I just think that, I think there's a limit to what we can do to that area. And like I said, it's confusing to I don't know if it can be residential or not, but I think we need to limit the amount of people that are in that area, unless you're going to deal with the fact that, or the infrastructure to deal with the people to be able to get in and out of that area. Because, I think you need to deal with the infrastructure first to deal with all the people cutting through our neighborhoods to get commute traffic to and from. I don't think we can handle any more people living in our area besides getting what we have already. It's already super impacted. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you very much.
I think there's some businesses that are everybody. I have tons of people that go to Dharma's. I've been shooting pull at Fast Eddie's for 30 years. My son and I go there. So I don't know. Whatever. I know they can sell the land and build new businesses or whatever. But anyway, I like the way it is now, and I like to keep the population where it is, because unless you're going to deal with creating traffic flow to dismiss the problem that's already happening, I don't think we need a bunch more people living there. So, all right.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. I have two pieces of paper because I'm actually going to speak from two different points of view. First, I'm here as one of your planning commissioners, and I was asked to come and relay to you what happened at the Planning Commission when we considered this item in September, when we voted to send the zoning ordinance on to you. When this issue came up at the Planning Commission, I was the one who actually raised the issue, and we discussed it not at length, fairly briefly, and it was clear that three of the other commissioners wanted to leave the zoning designation at the CC that had been proposed. Myself and Commissioner Story had some concerns about it, and my other commissioners were gracious enough to say this could be an item that would come to the City Council and be pointed out for your consideration. But at the commission meeting itself, a majority of the commissioners were in favor of leaving the zoning designation at the CC that's been proposed. For myself, stepping back as a resident in Capitola and one who's actually been very involved in this zoning ordinance for a long time, I think it's extremely important that the city get a new zoning ordinance. And we have worked on this for a long, long time, and we need to continue to make progress moving forward. And on this particular issue on Capitola Road, I think there are probably three good options for the council to consider, and hopefully you can do that in a timely manner and look at that and move on. And the first option, which is sort of surprising coming from me, is to leave the zoning the same, the CC zoning district. And I can say that because, having been a professional planner, I can look at the CC zoning district. I understand what the setbacks mean. I understand what the floor area ratio means. And I understand the amount of development that actually can take place on these properties. And I don't think it is excessive. And on the smaller lots, I don't think it would be very much different from what would be developed if the whole area was zoned with the MUN designation. Leaving at the CC, I think, creates some problems, and it's one of our goals was to create a zoning ordinance that was clear for the average person to understand. And if you leave at CC and someone comes in and they want to sell their house, and the home buyer goes and asks the city, well, what can happen next door to me? The city will say, oh, well, it's zoned CC. You can build, 40-story building. Here are the requirements. So it's not real clear under that just straight CC designation what can happen there. Another thing that you can do, and Councilmember Bottorff brought it up, is simply limit the height in this section of the CC zoning ordinance and say it's 35 feet, which was what the professional office building was, or 30 feet. You can pick a number and do that. For me personally, I think there's a third option which sort of splits the baby down the middle, but I think accomplishes a lot of what we want to have as a community. And that is what I refer to as the north side of Capitola Road, which has the smaller lots on it that back directly up to the single-family residential. I believe that area should have the MUN zoning continue down Capitola Road on that side of the street. It won't really impact the uses that can go in there. It can, still be developed with mixed use, commercial, residential, but the people who live there in the single-family houses will have an assurance as far as what the height is going to be without having to go through a complicated and actually quite difficult calculation to figure out what it will be. And the other side of Capitola Road, which is the CC, I would be comfortable leaving that the way it is designated now, partly because the big parcel with the 2 white CCs on there is owned by the state, and it was mentioned they can do anything they want on that property, and we don't get to regulate that because they own that property. On the McDormas, there will certainly, it's one of our housing sites. We all talk about how we want housing, and I think that's a good and appropriate place for it. With having to have a 20-foot setback and meet the daylight requirements, it's not going to have, in my opinion, a significant adverse impact on the neighbors behind it. So my personal suggestion is to come up with a resolution to this issue. I don't think it's a complicated one to resolve. There's certainly some valid options that staff has presented to you, but I hope we can come up with one that satisfies the neighbors and allows for some future development in Capitola, because development will happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good evening. Welcome.
Just bear in mind, this is the guy that likes us. Okay.
All right. Oh, I'm waiting.
We can extend the clock.
Actually, this has been very enlightening. I was pretty much totally against this. I was coming here to say, I don't want to see this at all. Oh, by the way, my name's Dave Fox. I live up on McCormick Avenue. But listening to the presentation and everything, thank you, I kind of go, why are you doing 4 stories? That's the whole issue. And you're telling me, I understand flow ratios. You can't even do 4 stories. So why would you even put it out there for some developer to come along and go, oh my God, look at what I can do? And some architect to draw plans and all this other kind of stuff when it's not going to work. So I'm going along with Susan, and I listened to her, and I thought everything she said was great. And so I'm not going to take any of your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Would anyone else like to speak? Don't be shy if you'd like to say anything. Good evening.
Hello, it's me again. I'll sign in real quick too. I'm Rob Kawamoto. I've actually own a corner lot just down the street on 42nd and Grace. I understand the building process. I understand the FARs. One thing I haven't heard that council or anyone's addressed tonight is the walkability issue. You talk about it, but yet no one has told me, as a resident, as a walker, my wife who walks every day, I'm sure all of you have seen her, the sidewalks. What are we going to do about making these commercial zones accessible? You go anywhere in Europe, the sidewalks are 10 times bigger than anywhere here in the U.S., and that's one thing that no one has addressed tonight. The other thing is the traffic is horrific. Were there any traffic studies that were done to impact what the flow ratio is or any of that?
We haven't done any traffic studies until we have a project.
Well, so I think it's important that, you look at the first step, how are the people going to access, whether it's commercial or residential? I think the infrastructure here is in need of a major upgrade. And so I would encourage council, building, planning, to talk about the sidewalks, first off. Thank you.
Thank you. We are working on our Americans with Disabilities Act transition plan update finally. And so we're looking at all those things in the city. So finally, we're going to be looking at all these accessible issues and upgrading things in town. So that'll be wonderful.
Madam Mayor, just a quick point of clarification. We actually did study traffic as part of the general plan update. We did an EIR that evaluated the traffic impacts of total build out of the city under that plan.
And that area can handle more traffic.
Well, 41st Avenue.
What's the level of service at those intersections? That would be interesting to look at.
I don't know that particular intersection, but I know the north stretch 41st Avenue is failing.
Yeah. Well,
just to point out there were studies done.
yeah. I mean, most of our, okay, thank you very much. I forgot about that. Yeah, most of them are probably in that area, or D on an A to F level. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Melody Newcomb. I live on 44th Avenue. I am your squeaky wheel. I call the Capitola PD when the noise is too loud, when there's a band starting up in the complex down there. I call when the tow truck is revving up his engine in the middle of the night at 3 o'clock in the morning. I call when people are dumping boats and trash and everything along the end of my street. And I'm kind of my neighborhood watch, trying to clean up my area. I've lived there for 15 years. I've worked hard to remodel and take care of my house and not have my house have any blight. I have 4 grandchildren, which I walk down to the beach, and I can tell you in 15 years I've seen the traffic pattern. I mean, you guys just get out there about 2 or 3 in the afternoon and start trying to go down to Capitola in your cars. It is horrific. I can barely get through as I'm trying to get through to go pick up my grandchildren from Twin Lakes. And I can't take the freeway. So how am I going to do this? How am I going to get down there? My concern, going to Dharma's, going to the parking lot, if you're going to do different types of multi-level, look at the parking there. Already when you go in, the parking lot is already full. So I'm a resident. I've lived here 15 years. I've lived in Capitola 30 years. I love this town. It's a 2-by-2 square mile town. It's a beautiful, wonderful place to live. Please consider it for the residents. For the people that cross that street right there, half the time I have to back up and make sure somebody sees that light goes on. There's those crossing guard areas from the DMV. It's frightening. People almost get hit every day there. And you're going to increase the traffic. You're going to increase the people in the area. Think about it for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming. Anyone else like to speak? Good evening.
Hello, my name is Jennifer Collins. I live on 46th Avenue, and I've lived here most of my life, so a long time. I just was, thank you so much for the presentation. That was excellent. The information was great, and the questions that the council asked were very spectacular as well. I guess I would just ask the council, when you're making this decision, just to listen to the community, as you always do, and just consider their concerns about, traffic and density and the infrastructure. Also, too, I kind of hesitate, or I want you to think about setting standards that aren't meetable, or, for example, like setting, like I was hearing the gentleman speak, and he said, well, why would we even set a 4-story standard if it's not even attainable, and just to make it the same, and so that it's just in this little box. So I would hope that you'd go beyond that, and you would zone that area specifically for what can be done to the area, and what you'd like to see be done to the area as well. Just lay the groundwork and just set the standard of what you expect our community to look like and what we do too. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak?
Pardon?
I said, would anyone else like to speak? I know it's hard to speak in public. Good evening.
I'm a homeowner on 46th Avenue. My name's Deidre Fuller, and I moved to 46th Avenue 19 years ago and purchased my home and have worked very hard. And I have to say I fully own my house, officially this last year. And I've raised my son. He's 18 and just went off to college. And it's been an issue on 46th for the whole time. Not letting my son get run over, or we had 2 animals get killed on that street. A neighbor also had their cat killed on that street because everybody uses it as a drive-by or a way to get from Capitola Road to Claire's. And the impact, I think, on more community will just make that street that much more dangerous. I can't even back out in my driveway because people just shoot down that street so fast, and then we have a hard time having parking. So I would just say that I don't think the area can handle more people. So thank you.
Thank you very much for coming. Would anyone else like to speak? Then I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the council. And thank you all very much for coming tonight, and thank everyone who wrote us an email and wrote us some letters about that. This is kind of a difficult issue, but who would like to start?
First, I'll reiterate what the mayor said. We are not going to make a decision on this zone tonight. It's not going to happen. There's a lot of.
We never know.
You never can tell, but I'm just trying to feel the council. It's the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. A lot of people probably couldn't make it. For that reason alone, we want as much public input as possible. My vision for tonight is that we'll discuss this. We'll have recommendations. We'll give the recommendations to staff. They'll come back, and then we'll read the language and have the next iteration of public hearings. That may be what happens. That's my hope. Melody, there's nothing wrong with being the squeaky wheel. Absolutely. The saddest part about the traffic on Capitola Road is if we restricted traffic on Capitola Road to Capitola residents, there wouldn't be any traffic. The problem with Capitola Road, the problem with Bromer, the problem with the Jewel Box, the problem with the Village is when Highway 1 stops moving, everybody comes through our town. I wish we could put a toll booth at Stockton Bridge, solve all of our problems. That's not going to happen. I really like Susan's idea. I've been struggling with a way to make this right. First of all, 4 stories is a non-starter. It's just not going to happen. And there's a lot of reasons. Like you said, why recommend 4 stories if the numbers don't work and no one can possibly build 4 stories? I think, except for those few lots where the black line CCs are, you could barely fit 3 stories on there. So her idea of the MUN zone along the north side where the small lots are makes a lot of sense. It's the closest to single-family residences, and the CCs are. I don't want to neglect the development in the blue area, even though it's blue and it's a development area. Those are also single-family homes. Those are also families living in single dwellings. So I don't want to make it sound like I feel like they're not as important as every other one, but they also back up onto really large lots that has some latitude to relieve the pressure and not be next to the residences. So I think having the CC there makes sense. And I think that it should be, I'm almost reluctant to go to the 35-foot, which is what that was before. I didn't see anybody rushing to build anything 35 feet tall there to begin with. But what I'd like to do there is, even if we say that it's 35 feet, that's the area where we need design development, specific council approval and review and public outreach on every single parcel and every single project. That is an area that could go bad easily. So just saying to someone, giving them by right the ability to build 3 stories, go for it, backing off, it's just CC, is not enough for me. We need to look at every one of those properties if and when they should come up. I don't see the medical building or the AAA building being raised anytime soon and having a new building put on it. But I think the Dharma site is the one we really have to keep our eye on, because that could go in a bad way or it can go in a very good way. One of the reasons why we like mixed use by putting some apartments above some commercial is what it does is it makes the people, or allows the people, to live in an area without having to get in their car. The common wisdom now is to keep everything as close as we are in Capitola. There are very few people in Capitola that can't walk everywhere they want to go. So I look around at all the cars every weekend, and I realize these aren't Capitola people going from here to there.
Probably half of Capitola that can't walk everywhere they'd like to walk.
Right, but that more speaks to our ADA and our sidewalk issue,
And age.
And age, but we do it incrementally. So, my proposal would be for the council to direct staff to bring us back something on this zone, which would make the north side MUN, which is the minimum zoning, the lightening of that zone, the reduction in intensity of that zone where it's pink now, and to bring us back something, some language about the south side where the DMV is and where Dharma's is and where the two modern office buildings are, and make it very design development required, to where it has to come back. Each project has to be judged on its own merit and the way it impacts the rest of the neighborhood.
I'd like us to consider voting on the MUN change tonight to give people a sense of security that we're not going to be doing something awful there. And we really need to then carefully consider that CC area, because we really haven't had a discussion about 27 feet, and then that 35. I don't know if that was an awkward height there in the middle, but I think we should take them separately, because they're separate. They're really separate topics. So what are we going to do with those parcels that abut single-family homes, and what are we going to do on that side where we have different zonings on that side?
I like what you're saying, but I still am sensitive to the holiday week issue. And even though we believe, and many of the people out here believe, that's a slam dunk, down zoning that to multi-use neighborhood because it's less intense, we're still doing something at a time of the year that it's difficult for people to come to the meeting. So I'm just trying to be sensitive to that.
Jacques.
So I really like a comment. I think Jennifer said this correct, Collins. What can be done in that area? I truly like that. There's a part of that street that really bothers me. So we'd like to have development that encourages a community that we want, walkability and things like that. But the road is really wide, and it doesn't lend itself to north side, south side. They're two different areas. So in one sense, I do like what Susan Westman suggested, extend the MUN area. To also make that a better situation for the houses behind it, because one thing we have in the general plan is we have to lessen the impacts on adjacent residences. And I think, when I'm going to recommend that we go back to city planning. But when that gets on your desk, think about what is the impact of a new commercial building or a repurposed building that's now commercial on a local residence. And I think I'd like to see some really good ways to fashion that out so that it's lessened in terms of impact. In terms of walkability, I'd also like to put out widening the sidewalk. I don't know if we have the money to do that, but if we're going to allow for development on the north side and allow for incremental change, which is the way a lot of community commercial areas develop. They're incrementally changed as the landowners realize there's opportunity there. You can't be walking along a 3-foot sidewalk. It just doesn't work. Now, I notice a lot of people do walk that side there, and they go down to the village and back and stuff. But imagine, I'm referring back to what Jennifer said, imagine what it could be if you had a wide enough sidewalk so people could actually walk there and stroll to the various businesses that I think will develop if we have an MUN district. I'd be very happy with that place. I think it could turn out to be something we really would like in Capitola. There'd be a lot of businesses there that the neighbors in the area could go to and, buy their products or whatever their services. So I also would like City Planning to listen to us and come back. I don't think that we can make a vote right now. I think there's a lot of things that are in play. Someone did say that even though I've read this thing 5 times over and I try to think of all the options, but there's many different things, setbacks, the side of the sun, stuff like that. All those things are going to influence any particular design that will come up. And so I'd like to see some options and some development on staff time to come back to us.
Ed?
Sure, thanks. I want to go over a couple points that Mike brought up, and I appreciate all the neighbors here. The good thing about all your city council people is they do live in this town, and they do drive on Capitola Avenue, and we do get stuck in that traffic. And I agree with you, at 3 o'clock, it's like you wish you could go someplace else. But what we try to prevent ourselves from doing is cutting down your street, which is what all the other people that do to get through, and which causes the problem. And that's probably the biggest root of your complaint is that the area is inundated with cut-through traffic. As Mike said, traffic coming off Highway 1. But what we're here to talk about tonight is, in a vision, and this is what we did, and that's why I want to take us back a few steps. When we did the general plan, and there were 2 members up here that were on the general plan committee of 11 people, went on for 3 years, and we had all these meetings about if all of a sudden these buildings were not here, and something else was going to be put in its place, what would you like to see there? That's what a general plan does. It just says, what would be the best use of this property? City has absolutely no right or rule to tear down any of these buildings and determine what can or can't be there. And as Mike pointed out in a couple of those buildings may be here for the next 100 years. And a lot of the zoning restrictions does not allow them to add to their unit unless they're willing to put in a parking structure, which becomes hideously expensive. So the fact is that nothing may ever happen on Capitola Avenue. But if it does, that's the challenge. What do we want to see there? And when we talk about the Dharma site being ripe, it's because maybe it's an underdeveloped, maybe it's something, a big parcel that somebody thinks they could put a big project on. So when we come up with the designation, I just want you to know that 3 years, the General Plan Committee with numerous hearings, where's Ben? Ben, numerous hearings to decide what's the best use here, and we came up with this designation. Now, to me, I would vote on this tonight because what I see is there's a simple solution. There's just one big glaring mistake in this whole problem. Nothing needs to be 40 foot tall on that street. It's ridiculous, okay? The fact that the existing zoning has it at 35 is not a problem with me because that's consistent with that neighborhood. It's consistent with any street in town where we have 2 lanes on each side of the road. If you have a residential neighborhood where you have your one street, obviously you don't want that kind of height on that street. But this is what we call a transition area. It comes off of 41st where it could be 40 feet. I would be willing to have it become a CC district because we want to encourage that kind of business there. Obviously, we have the Department of Motor Vehicles, and we have Dharma's, and we have those Fast Eddie's Pool Hall, and we have these businesses here, and that's what it is. They may remain there forever, and it doesn't bother me. And the other thing I want to appreciate is this body of 11 people put all this thought, met with the residents, came up with this plan, this whole binder. We're talking about one ordinance, and there's probably about 5,000 ordinances in this whole binder that we're talking about right now. Planning Commission already went through this, and they approved this. And we try to respect the Planning Commission when they bring us something, because this body votes, they pay attention to that, and then we look at it. When this thing came to me and we started receiving the letters, the concern was 4-story building, 40 feet tall, and I couldn't agree with you more. It's ridiculous. That does not belong in this corridor. But the community, the CC zoning, I believe, does. And I'm worried about changing it to the MU because I like the transition. That's how proper zoning works. It transitions. And it's kind of, what we don't want to do is we don't want to piecemeal and mix things up. I think the way it was now is we went from 40 to 27 to 35. And you don't want that kind of a mishmash. You want a logical flow. So I'm okay if this comes back. If that's what the council wants to do, it's always the will of the council. But for me personally, I would be willing to approve a CC with the restriction that the height would never exceed 35 feet, which means there wouldn't be 4 stories, and it would be a limit of 35 feet.
Kristen, you want to make some comments?
Yeah. A lot of what my thoughts are on this issue have already been said by other council members. And I am also interested in the idea of extending the mixed use zoning designation on that one side of the street. And I would also like to see more information about that if that's something that staff can bring back to us. And just on that note quickly, as Treasurer Wilk mentioned at the beginning of our meeting, our staff has put in an enormous amount of time on this, and every time we see this, we send it back with more work for them. And so I want to really thank our staff for all the really hard work that they've put into this. It's not unnoticed. And so to add to that, it would be great to see what it would look like to have that mixed use zone on that side of the street. I also agree that it's not a good time to make this decision because it's the holiday weekend. And although I agree with Councilmember Bottorff that there is in my opinion, a pretty clear solution, I think there's also those who are out on Thanksgiving holiday with their families right now who may not agree and wouldn't have otherwise had the opportunity to tell us. So I guess in a nutshell, what I'm saying is I echo specifically what Councilmember Termini said, and I would like to see this brought back to us in the future.
Concerning 3 stories and 30 feet or 35 feet, I think we need to have a discussion about that, because what do we have that's 3 stories in town? Is that a look you want? We have a couple buildings in the village. We have the Fairfield Hotel. We have the Marriott Hotel. We have the Fairfield is actually 3.5. It's garage and then 3 stories, so it probably is 40 feet. But you're not looking at 4 stories. You're looking at the garage, and then you're looking at 4 stories. That's the biggest building in town. So do you have that? You want to put that picture up, or did you not get that?
44 feet.
It is 43, 44 feet. I can pull it up.
So I think we need to also be careful about the 30 feet and the 35 feet. Is that what we want, a look along that? I know, Ed, we want more business and more money, but it's the look of Capitola and the look of Capitola Road that we have to be really careful about, I think. And when we first did the redevelopment plan on 41st Avenue in the 80s, we said we would put the high density on 41st Avenue and try to protect, the other streets and protect the rest of the town from high density development. And so I know this doesn't maybe sound like a whole lot, but I see it as high density development. 3 stories I see on Capitola Road as high density. I think we only want 2 stories there. I know we have this part in the middle there that allows for 3 stories, but I think we need to really look carefully at that. And I know the state can do whatever they want, but I'm not sure that that's, that even 3 stories, where we don't hardly have any 3 stories around town. We don't even have 2 stories on that street. We have some 2 stories, but they're not all 2 stories. And I think just the look of Capitola Road with 3 stories buildings there, I think I wouldn't be crazy about it for anything other than affordable house, some nice affordable housing. But for other commercial, I'm not too interested in it on Capitola Road. It's the transition area going down to the village, and 2 stories is a nice height. And yeah, we have, we can look at 3, but I think we want to be really careful about that.
I think what we have to appreciate is when we talk about 35 feet in commercial mixed-use land, that is really 2 stories, because you're talking about a commercial first floor, which is a minimum of 10-foot finished height inside, sometimes 11 or 12, then a single row of dwellings above it, and then the pitch of the roof, you're at 35 feet. So I don't know that anybody could fit a 3-story building in 35 feet.
Flat roof.
If it didn't have a flat roof.
They'd put a flat roof, and then we'd have to look at a building with an ugly flat
No,
roof.
and we have already spoken
some
about
of those.
that.
Every project has design review, just.
Right, and we put our foot
project.
down on the plate height,
Yeah, but we're not
making
always
sure
gonna-
there was a pitched roof.
I know,
Yeah.
well, but
So-
we're always not going to be here. And we want to make sure that we have design guidelines that others are going to follow, so we will have good developments in the future.
With
that-
or without
that
us,
you and
there's
Jim-
design review. No, with or without us. When we all change, planning staff is still here, we'll review every
Planning
building.
staff will change too.
Every-
That's
but-
been our problem, was we've
But
had a
every
lot of changes
building
here for the last
gets a
10 years.
review. Yeah, every building gets a review.
Madam Mayor, if I may, just one little nuance thing to keep in mind too, when we talk about height limits, It's easy to sort of confuse height limit with stories, right?
Yeah.
One building you might want to think about is the Lighthouse Building we talked about earlier in the village. That's, I believe, 31 feet, but it's not 3 stories. What it has...
And we had a fight about that when that was...
The point being that you can have an architectural element that may go above the height, and it can make it look very interesting, but it's not necessarily additional floor space or story. So just something to keep in mind as you're debating this.
Right. Jacques?
So since I've been in town, I consider myself a new arrival, especially listening to some of the people that spoke. Been here 20 plus 2 years or 1 year or something. I can't remember exactly. I certainly enjoy the area. I just very happy we moved here. My daughter is at Capitola and she's a Tolan. You know, it's in our blood now. But one of the things that is a constant topic, and I think we all agree, everyone in this room, is how do we accommodate change? And you know, I've talked to people who remember the open fields, the strawberries, everything. You know, I've talked to people that haven't been here for a couple of years and they're concerned just about certain things, traffic being the major one, I think. So I'm looking, Ed and I were on the General Plan Committee, and I went through it today. I actually spent most of the afternoon reading appropriate sections. And there's one policy referring to the residential neighborhoods on either side of Capitola Road that I'd like to pull up. That's policy LU 4.7. So it says, in terms of planning projects, ensure that future planning efforts for non-residential areas carefully consider potential impacts on adjacent residential neighborhoods. And I think that's part of what we're talking here, whether it's the height of the buildings, whether it's the impact from shadowing, whether it's the intensification of use because the businesses were going to pull in a lot of people. It's taking away or adding to our experience here in Capitola. And it's always very attractive to make a decision right now. I think everyone likes that sense of decisiveness. I don't. Because I like to sit back, that's why I'm on the city council. I like to sit back and think about things. And I like to have the elements that have been brought up here tonight in this discussion gone over. I respect our planning staff. If any of you have had the pleasure to work with them, they really do put their homework down on the pages and they come up with great ideas. That's what services are about in this city. That's why we pay people, and that's why we're lucky to have them. So I'm bringing that up because I think with that kind of time to think about things and listening to us, and the people who have spoken tonight, I wish more had spoken, I really do, I think some ideas will come up because that's what we're about. We want to live in the city, we want to enjoy it, and we want to, I'm hoping my daughter has my house moving forward when we retire and that sort of thing. So I think we have that in mind, the succession to other generations. So what Jennifer said, I think is really appropriate. Think of what we want on that street. Ms. Collins, I appreciate that. That sort of, to me, brings everything together. Do we want a street that is congested with traffic? Do we want a street that is hard to cross because we don't know if we're going to make it to the other side, especially as we get older? Do we want a street that's walkable? Maybe we need to narrow the street and put some money into the CIP fund so that we narrow it down and it becomes a street that is easy to walk across and people don't drive down it so fast. And maybe people won't turn off 41st to go shortcut down Wharf or 46 or 45th. 45th may be dead end. I always forget that. So that is what I think should drive our decision. Think of what we want for Capitola. Think of what we want for Capitola now and in the future. Thank you.
Other comments? Mike, did you make a motion?
I would just like to find out if the staff has heard the council and has a feeling for the direction. I think there's a pretty much a universal feeling about the MUN going along the north side. Right. It feels like a gentle way to downzone that side so that no one gets ideas that they can develop it more than it should be.
And what Ed said about the height, I think we all agree on that.
And the other side, we'd like to see something with regard to design development and approval, that each individual parcel has to come to us, that there can't be anything more than 35 feet, which is what it's zoned for right now, and leaving the floor area ratio at 1 and all those restrictions that keep that a gentled area. We want to see what that looks like in planning language so that we can feel that it does the job, and that's my motion.
Well, if I may clarify a point, we're at an introduction of a first reading of a full ordinance. So we're kind of straw polling at this point what you would like to see, but
So we don't
we're,
need a
we're
motion?
not pulling out individual parts of an
We're gonna adopt the
ordinance for
entire
a motion.
ordinance.
So it's really
So we just need,
direction.
we are,
Exactly.
we're
I just
giving-
wanted to be clear that this is not
The whole thing.
then I won't worry about
a vote
collecting.
on a reading of an ordinance.
I won't worry about collecting the votes that I need to substantiate this. And I think that if the council concedes with this, that we've given staff the proper direction. Does that sound right?
I think so. I'm happy.
Everybody clear on that?
Yeah.
Clear.
Is the audience clear?
Okay.
We're going to change the zoning on that side of the street to MUN, which used to be CN, Neighborhood Commercial, which is same zoning as single-family homes, 27 feet, 2 stories. And then we'll look at the other side of the road, the more commercial side.
And just a point of clarification to the benefit of the public, there were quite a few comments on sidewalks, and within the CC zone, there's a 15-foot front yard setback, 10 feet of which is required for sidewalks. So that has been considered on the improved walkability in the
Can
future.
that be
Incorporated.
part of the MUN? Can we include that in the MUN zone on that side of the street, the north side?
We'll bring that into our analysis.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other comments about this? Okay, thank you, everybody. We'll go on to the next topic. If you want to stretch your legs and leave or stick around for the next topic, you're welcome to.
It's riveting. It's riveting.
Thank you so much for coming and making
you,
comments. I really appreciate that. I think we all do, actually. Really do.
I think we need more candy bars up here.
Yeah.
Sorry, I should have brought more sugar.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
We will auction off the bed.
Oh.
Let's take a 1-minute stretch break.
I have a Butterfinger and a peanut butter cup that I'm willing to.
We're going to continue now, and maybe if there's people in the audience that have particular things you want to speak on, you sure could speak on them now, so you don't have to wait too late. If you want to do that, you're welcome to, and get your comments out there, or if you want to wait for the item we get to it, whatever you'd like to do. Or just jump up and come on up if there's something you want to speak about. And how late does the council want to go tonight?
They tell us that this won't take long at all.
So I have a few small items. The rest of the items are, I believe,
self-explanatory.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's get the public comment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good evening.
Hi there. So I'm back up. I was the first one. I'm Elizabeth Jackson. And what I wanted to speak to was the zoning that Katie's been working on about changing some of the homes to be vacation rental homes. And I completely agree with all of approving the ones that are on the possible list, and I would like my home to be included in it as well. As I'm listening to all the talk tonight about the roads, it seems to me that, you know, one of the big concerns is we've got all this traffic but not enough money coming into the town. You want to have more money. And it seems to me, like, for instance, this weekend, I live in Depot Hill, and I don't have enough room for my family to come and stay, so they're coming for the day. They're going to go back to Los Gatos, where they will stay for a few days, and they'll eat money. So, I mean, they'll spend money in restaurants, and they'll spend money in stores, and they won't do it here in Capitola because I don't have a place for them to stay. So what I would love, I have another house that's it's right across the street, actually, on the corner of Blue Gum and Riverview Avenue, and just right behind the restaurant that's over there. And I would very much like it to be a vacation rental so that I can use it for my family and my friends when they come to town, and otherwise I can rent it out. Currently, I have it just as a full-time rental. And it seems to me that the more people that you get to come into town that actually stay and, you know, are to what you were just discussing before, people are here and they're walking around town, they're not driving, they're not adding to the traffic, but they are adding to spending money in the town and adding to the commerce and supporting the town. So in my house in particular, it is, hopefully you got my email.
You want to give us the address again?
488 Riverview Drive. And it's, you know, I have plenty of parking, so I don't impact the town from that standpoint. We're very close to the beach, the town, the river. We're right in the middle of town, so it just seems like it's such a clear winner to me as a place to be able to be a vacation rental. So I would very much love to
park in the garages.
Pardon me?
Can you park in the garages?
You can with short cars. I have a Mini, and I can park in the garage. The house has sunk over the years just because it's a historic home, and the garages are really low. But I mean, you're not going to put a Yukon in there, but
I think we'd be looking at standard parking places, and then you have the one on the side. But
correct.
But you need to take that fence down probably because that's not legal to save a parking place on the street for yourself. You have to.
I think that's already been taken out. My tenant.
The fence was there today, or the gate that swings out. It's very, very interesting. It saves a parking place on the street for private use but it's a public street, so you can't do that.
Yeah, that's not a problem for me. I didn't put it in, but the previous owners put it in.
Yeah.
And my current tenant doesn't like it there anyway. It's a scratch the side of your car hazard. So that's not an issue to pull that out. But cars do actually fit. You may not consider them parking spots, but they do fit in the two spots if they're not too tall.
Tiny cars would, but we always have to plan for regular sized cars in the garages.
Okay, but it's such a small house anyway. I can't imagine that you'd ever have two cars pulling up
But you might rent to somebody that has two cars and they have to be able to get them in and get out, whatever kind of car they are, as a rental.
Okay, possibly.
So if you could raise the house and do that, maybe you could do that.
For a couple $100,000, I could, but that's probably not in the cards for me. So, but I don't know that. Anyway,
I'd be willing to discuss that when we get to transient occupancy zone because we have a lot of transient occupancy homes along Riverview that have zero parking.
Well, I thought we had a map. I don't know if that map's available, but I mean, I thought we already had approved that at a meeting past.
No, not that.
Off on that, or?
Not that particular parcel we hadn't.
I actually do have maps.
There was a recent map, I
of
believe, of the Planning Commission where they approved
In your binder, there's a zoning map.
Susan is chomping at the bit to get up, so.
And the
What's the page?
the transient rental, if you go into your draft zoning map.
It's really hard to see. This is the size of our map.
I
So
have this one if you want.
That's the
I
one.
made some copies. Do you
Yeah,
want
well,
this?
we've got a color one.
But basically, the zone was continued along Capitola Avenue across the street to Riverview.
Right.
And then it stops there. So the cafe is not included in the zone.
And this is
across-
next door to the cafe.
And this is behind the cafe.
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
Right next door to the cafe.
I was going to buy that at one time.
Right, yeah, I know. But, and then the house right next door to that, and then right next door to that. And, because we have other requests up Capitol Avenue for.
Not Capitol Avenue, this is Riverview, so.
Right, but I mean, as you.
And I'm the last house. The next,
Yeah.
it's Blue Gum is the street there, so there isn't another house next to me on the other side.
But it's a long-term rental right now?
Correct.
Yeah.
Oh.
I think we would prefer to see parking addressed, and we always have to have adequate parking for all of our projects, residential or commercial, so that's kind of an issue.
Are we discussing the TOT zone tonight?
It was not in my slides of discussion items, but I've pulled up the map here of what was recommended by the Planning Commission.
Maybe that's something, Madam Mayor, that we can continue and review the visitor zone at a later meeting
Okay.
and keep that
consider it.
door open.
Okay, how will I know what meeting it's going to be at? Because it's hard to tell when you look at the agenda, because they're not necessarily spelled out.
The next meeting is on the 29th of
Next
November,
Wednesday.
next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday, we'll be here talking about your place.
Okay, all right, sounds good, thank you.
I'll wait and come back on the 29th.
Time for bed. Okay.
Anyone else in the audience like to address us on any items tonight, or do you want to just wait till we get through to all these various items? Okay, why don't we just continue on with
One more, Stephanie.
Oh.
One more. Yeah, come on. Because we could ramble on topics all night, and I hate to make you sit, so.
Good
Hi.
evening. Sign in if you'd like your name spelled correctly. You don't have to, though, and speak into the microphone, please.
Okay, my name is Mark Garrigas. No spelling quiz here. And I am the proud owner of a not new, but new to me, residence on Depot Hill, 110 Hollister. Closed a couple of weeks ago, and similar. We'll leave that alone. But it's 4,000 square feet, and as we understand it, and new to Capitola. So let me just start there. Third generation San Franciscan, but been back east for a long time working, and our kids are full grown. But they're at the age where they're probably going to have children too. And my wife is a writer. She's right there. And so as we go about designing the house, we're just interested in the FAR. And the FAR for that lot is like 0.54. So we get that. And it also has come to our attention that there's the possibility, probability, don't know the term, that second unit could be added, and it's currently a 5,000 square foot situation, but it seems like the intention of the state and maybe also the city to lower that to 4,000 feet.
For an accessory dwelling?
Yes.
For an ADU?
Yeah. Okay. And of course, my kids are back east, and so it'd be nice to have a little spot for them too. Also for my wife to write. But so the question is, when I went through the RUs or whatever that is, and I don't know the terminology very well, but it said that the FAR, the footprint is 54, but that if you have a second unit, it goes up to 0.6. But it says that for 5,000 feet. But since this city as well as the state have an intention to lower it to 4,000 feet. I wonder that the FAR shouldn't be, or the square footage shouldn't reflect the change that's proposed. In other words, that the FAR should be 0.6 if you were going to have a second dwelling, and that it was changed or is proposed to be changed to 4,000 feet, but perhaps it was an oversight that there wasn't a change to 4,000 feet. It was just, do you get what I'm saying?
Yes,
I'm
I do.
starting to ramble here.
That the
engineer does.
I have a
There's a
two-slide.
there's a staff comment here and a recommendation.
Yeah.
Maybe she could read that.
Right.
'Cause
Yeah.
it's here.
What number?
So I think we have a new planning commissioner.
No, you conveyed it.
No, thank you
conveyed
for
it
bringing
well.
that to our attention. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So I'll just quickly go over. So in
Very
the,
well said.
So in the zoning code update, the minimum square footage of a lot currently is at 5,000 square feet. Within the zoning code update, it was decreased to 4,000 square feet for attached secondary units. An attached secondary unit is either attached to the home or it can be within an existing detached unit that's on the lot. Within our floor area ratio table, this is the new code, there's a note that says parcels of 5,000 square feet are allowed to have the increased floor area ratio of 0.6. I do not think when we decreased the minimum lot size to 4,000, I do not think we considered whether or not they should be allowed to have this, the 4,000 square foot lots also have the 0.6 FAR. So looking at that, what it means is with a 4,000 square foot lot, if you have a 0.54 FAR, they can build 2,160 square feet, 2,160. If you allowed it to go up to 0.6, that would allow the max square footage up to 2,400. That's a difference of 240 square feet. I want to compare this to today's standard.
That's the sum total of the home and the ADU.
Yes, both.
Okay.
So it gives them a little, on a 4,000 square foot lot, they're allowed to build a 500 square foot ADU. So it pretty much gives them half of the square footage they need. If you were to build under today's standard of the 5,000 square foot minimum, there's a 0.5 FAR, so a 5,000 square foot lot, you could build a 2,500 square foot home. With the 0.6, that incentive brings a homeowner up to 3,000 square feet, so it's actually 500 square feet that would go towards their 680 square foot ADU on a 5,000 square foot lot. So this is relative.
In scale.
It's in scale. So I do think it was an oversight in us not bringing this up as a conversation point earlier. So with that, we're looking for your direction if you'd like to maintain the note that only the lots of 5,000 square feet or more be considered, or if this should be decreased to 4,000 square feet. And this did come up due to when our new residents came to the counter and we were asking questions about existing code and future development. I noticed that the note doesn't just say for secondary units, it says for secondary units on parcels of a minimum of 5,000 square feet. So with that.
And how does that differ from a detached ADU?
So a detached ADU, a brand new detached ADU, would only be allowed on a lot of 5,000 square feet or greater. The 4,000 square foot allotment allowance was for internal ADUs, which is either connected to the home or within an existing structure on the site, a second existing structure. So in their circumstance, there is an existing second structure on their site. So, and
Personally, I think that we're trying to promote this concept.
Yeah, I already marked okay.
Yeah, I mean, bringing it to 0.6, and if we're going to lower it to 4,000 square feet for the ADU, I think it makes perfect sense, and I think it accomplishes what we're looking for.
Right.
And we're not talking about enormous expanses of mansion proportions here. It's just, this is pretty.
Just a quick, the minimum is a 4,000 square foot lot, and that lot is a 4,000 square foot lot, so it's,
We'd look at a survey when the application came in.
okay, but it's not a variable, because I see there's some here in this lot size that it gives a range, but the minimum is it would have to be a minimum of 4,000 square feet.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
There's not,
I can just address that because I had.
Wait till you get to the microphone. Wait till you get to the
we're not
microphone
here,
to speak.
go to the microphone so you can, before you start talking. Go
I
ahead.
had Olin Edmondson survey it just after we purchased it, and he found the existing markers and all that, and it's 4,000 feet, which it was planned to be originally, but he confirmed it.
Perfect.
Wow.
But within the secondary or the accessory dwelling units, it's 4,000.
Right, I just saw the floating numbers there, I just want to make sure it's a hard number, okay.
I think we're going to have to look at these and see how they turn out. And if we see that they seem to be too squeezy and crowded in the neighborhood, then we can do something about it, but
yeah.
it seems to be reasonable now.
Rational approach. Yeah,
Reasonable.
your recommendation on 8 was to approve and to adjust that anyway, so that's,
So by consensus, we'll agree to that?
yes, by consensus, we'll agree to that, yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Go back
Thank
to
you for
Good
coming.
luck, Turkey. Hey, I'm a fourth generation San Franciscan.
There you go.
Yeah.
I think I might be too on one side.
Oh, okay. On one side. Yeah, it's only on one side.
Yeah.
What high school did you go to?
I didn't. My parents were SI and Lincoln, and my grandparents were Galileo. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I was, SI, and my mom was Gal, so.
Be careful, Jacques, or we're going to send you back.
Okay.
Okay, good.
Thank you very much for coming.
1,000 more ordinances to do. Okay.
Next topic, please.
Okay, next topic. Zoning map between Capitola Road on 45th Avenue to Wharf Road. Community residential is changing to mixed-use neighborhood, and community residential is actually going away within the new code, and the new designation is mixed-use neighborhood. We got public comment for concern for the permitted uses and the impact on traffic and neighborhood feel. In comparison, the CR zone required a conditional use permit for retail, personal service establishments, and offices. The MUN allows retail, personal service establishments, and offices up to 3,000 square feet. So there would be no oversight for retail, personal service establishment, or offices if they're under 3,000 square feet. We took this to the Planning Commission. We said, would you like to keep it as proposed within the new code, or should we add a note requiring a CUP so that it essentially doesn't change the zoning from what it was? And the Planning Commission gave us direction to add a note to require a CUP along Capitola Road for any of those uses.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. So which numbers, are these on these lists right here?
Yeah, this is zoning map change.
This is on the in staff report.
In
Yeah.
the staff report, it's the second zoning
okay,
map
it's not on that
change.
one. Okay, got it.
So there's agreement?
Yes?
Yes.
Okay, I'll just move right along. Next is drive-throughs versus curbside services, and also designated spaces in an integrated complex. I just want to clarify from the beginning that within the zoning code, when we're looking at where you can utilize parking regulations, that's for on-site within a private property. We never look at, when we're talking about curbside, an individual with a business could not come in and place a sign on on the street. So this is curbside within their private lot. So new technology on our little gadgets that we like to carry around every day has created, we know there's a very easy way to get your order to be delivered to your car. So curbside is you place an order on your phone, the establishment will text you when it's ready to be picked up. When you park your car, you put on your mobile app that you make it visible to them where you are, your location device. They see that you've arrived in the Nob Hill parking lot, and they'll come out and meet you right at your car. So it's not even, the technology is moving so fast that when we first started brainstorming this, said, well, we need to have a designated area for these cars, and we'll require a CUP, and that's part of this. But really, even without those designated areas, the Nob Hill person can find you, or the CVS individual can find you right where your car is and come right out to you and deliver to your car. But many of the ways this is established is they will have curbside delivery. So McDonald's recently tried to install curbside delivery, and then that's kind of where we're going is we need to address this in the new code. So under our current standards, a parking space within an integrated complex, that means there's more than one commercial establishment within the complex, they're not allowed to designate exclusive parking spaces. Now, we all know that they do. We've seen them out there, but those are illegal. You're not allowed to designate specific areas. When they do a traffic study, they'll calculate how many they need, but they're not supposed to designate for an individual commercial tenant. With this new curbside, we thought there should be an avenue in which a development that's mixed use could come in and ask for a designated area for curbside, since the trend is heading that way. In our draft code, the way it's been written, within the previous draft, we amended it for you, but the existing drive-throughs, we actually include curbside service as part of the definition of drive-through. So how we treat a drive-through in the first draft of our code is exactly how curbside would be treated. So the only place within the new code that you were allowed to have a drive-through is in the regional commercial zone, as long as it was 100 feet from a residential. And that's exactly, those would have applied the same rules to curbside delivery. So in drafting that first draft of the code, we pretty much made it, we prohibited the allowance for curbside within any other zone, and that was not the intention. And there's a difference in the impacts, we think, to curbside retail versus curbside food delivery. And we really tried to take, yes.
We're not going to have curbside for individual. If there's a designated area, we might be going back, it wouldn't be like a designated curbside for Pete's and then for the pizza parlor. It would just be a designated curbside area that all businesses would use.
So the way it's drafted is more open-ended. It's if you want to have a designated area within a multi-tenant, you need to apply for a conditional use permit. Okay. So you can show us what you're proposing, and then we can analyze it. Okay. And we'll have a parking study.
Thank you.
Okay, so, and I mentioned within the current code, regional commercial is the only place that you can have a drive-through, and there's a 100-foot setback. So I just want to quickly go over the differences in the code. For restaurant with curbside, current code, that's prohibited. Retail with curbside is currently allowed. So at Nob Hill, you could go out and you could, they can deliver your food to your car, and you can get assistance to your car. And designated spaces, as I showed you the blurb on the existing code, it's prohibited within a shared lot, but if you had a private lot, you could have your designated spaces.
So it could be out in the parking lot or next to the building?
It could be, if it's your private property, you can designate any parking spaces that are existing as, your designated curbside spaces. So for instance, KFC could have designated pickup curbside spaces because they're just a single use, single tenant. Mm-hmm. So within,
how would that relate to McDonald's? Because isn't that a shared
lot? So that with is it CVS that's next door, and then Whole Foods, it's all kind of integrated parking. So in the draft code, our first go around on this, but when it went to Planning Commission, we realized the mistake that we had made. So the draft code, it required a CUP within the regional commercial zone, and we prohibited it elsewhere. This is restaurant with curbside. The way it was drafted in the first round, for retail curbside, where it was allowed previously, we had now required a CUP because we had it under the drive-through definition, and so only allowed in the regional commercial zone with the CUP, but then prohibited elsewhere. And then designated curbs, or the designated parking spaces within an integrated lot, that did not follow through with, wasn't drafted into the new draft code. So we were, when this came up, we said, that dropped from the old code to the new code. So hopefully we don't find many of those situations as we move forward. But so we identified that, and the Planning Commission recommendation at looking at this is that we should, for a restaurant with curbside, require a CUP within the regional commercial, so we treat it just like drive-throughs, and prohibit it elsewhere. So it's kind of a trial run in the regional commercial. And then retail with curbside, so your CVS's, your Nob Hills, allow it in all commercial zones. So if they want to bring your delivery out to your car, they can. And then for a designated space within a shared parking lot, an integrated parking lot, require a CUP for shared properties, so they could come in, they could provide us with a parking study, show us how it's going to work with circulation, review it at the Planning Commission level. And if it's a private property, they're allowed to do it because it's their parking and it's for their customers. So that was the Planning Commission recommendation. One item I do want to bring up is that in the draft that you received with the red lines, under the curbside, under, it was page 76-7, it says curbside drive-up service for retail uses are allowed in all zones, and that should be very specific to be all commercial zones or commercial and mixed use zones, but we definitely don't want that allowed in our residential zones. Councilmember Peterson brought that to my attention earlier today. So staff is recommending, or Planning Commission, with Planning Commission recommendation, we'd also suggest adding the specificity that it only be in commercial and mixed use if you'd like.
We should start working on our drone ordinance, because that's going to be the next delivery system, I suppose, is people going to get deliveries with drones, so we better start working on that. Any questions about this section?
All looks fine.
Looks good.
Consensus?
Good. Great. Okay. I just have a couple more. Okay, vacation rental signs. So this was, we've talked about this in depth prior. Vacation rental signs, originally the City Council had made a recommendation for us to downsize it from 12-inch by 12-inch down to 8.5 by 11. We had quite a bit of public comment. Of the 16 public comments that came in, I think 4 were related to this and how it would impact individuals who have already invested in signs. And so when Planning Commission reviewed it, they said, we know that City Council asked it to be reduced. After hearing the public comment, they wanted City Council to take another look at this, as they recommended just keeping it at the 12-inch by 12-inch rather than downsizing to 8.5 by 11. And that concludes my presentation.
And I'm not going to fight about that. I fought about it last time, and I'm not going to fight about that. That's not worth fighting about. My dream would be someday to have little teeny weeny signs that say vacation rental.
Very Carmel of you.
It makes the town look so damn commercial to have all these signs around. I'm sorry. Yeah. It makes it look, the whole village, commercial, commercial, commercial. And that used to be a neighborhood where people lived, and they had a neighborhood feeling. They knew each other.
So we can
hung out together.
We can let 12 by 12 go and not.
I'm not going to fight about it now, but my dream would be in the future if we could have them teeny weeny signs, because, you know, people have a right to advertise, but it just makes the whole town, I think, look really junky to have all these. And people, you know, they don't need, you know, they do a really good job of finding places without those. So.
You know how much I love to support the Planning Commission, and so they want 12 by 12.
Well, because I told them I would not fight over it. So.
Or 12 by 12?
Yes, but I don't like drive-ins, and if I had my druthers also, I would not have any more drive-ins in this town.
I was at an In-N-Out the other day. It was jam-packed.
I know.
I was too. It was delicious.
Okay, so
next,
I'm hearing move along with the 12
We're
by
on
12.
consensus on
Okay, so non-conforming signs. This is the second to last. So non-conforming signs. Originally, it was drafted to state that a non-conforming sign must be brought into conformance if the existing structure is increased beyond 50% of the floor area of the existing structure. Planning Commission, Commissioner Story asked us to discuss this one, and there's quite a variety of different sized buildings out there. So when you have a 50% requirement, if you have a 1,000 square foot building that's going to do a 500 square foot addition, that's very different from a King's Plaza that's thousands of square feet, and when will their signs come into compliance with a 50% addition? So they wanted to look at a new threshold. The Planning Commission's new threshold was that at the time of review of a design permit, so taking the threshold for when a design permit is reviewed by the Planning Commission, that they would also look at any non-conforming signs on the site, and they have the ability to make them come into compliance. They also have the ability to allow them to continue if they can make findings that they're compatible with the neighborhood and compatibility standards. So that was their suggestion, and with that, I'll take comment.
Well, I brought that up also because in looking at the future of our town, and we have a lot of old buildings and a lot of old signs, and if you look at some of the old signs, they're really bad. They're really tacky and they're very unattractive. So my feeling is if somebody's coming in and they're going to upgrade their building 50%, I want a new sign. I want a new sign. Unless the one that they have there is already fabulous, but there are tons of signs around. If you just look around the old buildings, they're ugly and they're awful and they're... So, to make a finding that they're compatible with the neighborhood, that is too subjective. I would really not like to go there. I would really like something with a little more teeth in it, so that if somebody comes in with a substantial remodel, we have the ability to get a new sign and not keep that old crummy sign, because they'll make an argument. I've heard them before. Oh, we can't afford it. It makes the project too expensive. Oh, we don't want to spend that money on it. It's just a sign, but I know they're expensive.
But did we back off the 50% so that any remodeling?
Any remodel that requires a design permit.
I think that's the win here.
But
they don't have to increase their floor area by 50%, because that worries me, because I don't see that happening hardly anywhere. But any design permit,
this is more stringent. This is more stringent.
Way more stringent.
This is more stringent.
Is this unanimous by the Planning Commission?
Yes.
Okay.
But how can a sign be compatible with the neighborhood? That I don't like that language, because it's too nebulous.
Well, let me read you the full, because it's a little more than I put in the slide. So it states, first off, when it's required, and that's the time of design permit. The Planning Commission may allow the continuation of the non-conforming sign only upon finding that the sign is compatible with the design character and scale of the surrounding area and does not adversely impact the public health, safety, or general welfare.
I just want the ability to get rid of old, ugly signs.
Where is that?
Is it to us?
Where is that?
See, the first rule may have let those old ugly signs remain. The design review means everything's subject to review now.
No matter what they're doing to the building, we get the ability to take the sign down.
We have more say now than we did before. Because like I said, if it's 50% on a big project, you can't touch them. Because they're not going to do 50%. They might do 20%.
So any new project.
Or 48%.
But
no, really.
We have much more control with this language.
This will catch many more than the 50%.
We'll see.
Would have.
We'll see.
It's a win. Stephanie, it's a win. Trust me.
I'll have to wait and see.
Okay.
Have to wait and see. Because we have not been very successful in the past. Of course, some of the old ugly signs are not non-conforming. They got a permit at the time when the building went up. They probably got a permit for that sign. But I just want to try to get rid of those old ugly signs that we have. And this is the only way we can do it is with the development standards.
Okay, I always like to save the best for last.
Is this the last one?
Yes.
And this is the best one?
This is the best.
I guess.
So I hope you.
My chicken ordinance. I'm waiting for this. This is the best.
Saw the news yesterday. The front page of the paper. Turkeys are thriving, and they're causing ruckus.
They're all
and there's the
today.
picture.
I like ruckus. That's the
I've been
best.
in areas where they do this.
That's right up there with
really
rumpus.
amazing.
I love it.
So we had quite a bit of public comment that came in during the 60 days. Talking about chickens and
We know where.
allowing people to pet chicken. There was great descriptions of how they benefit the community and having access to them. The new regulations require chicken coops to be located in the rear yard and have a substantial setback from neighbors. Commissioner Story asked that we talk about should we have a requirement that they be in a fenced-in yard? So during the Planning Commission review, they added a requirement that all livestock be located within a fenced yard. So, and it's only the allowed livestock. There's a lot of livestock that's not allowed in Capitola, but within our permitted livestock to require them to be within a fenced yard. So now it's not just in a coop in the backyard, but you also have to have a fenced
If it's fenced in, can we now let the coop be in the side or the front? Anybody think about that?
It's not, they didn't consider, they didn't give any direction to move where the coop would be allowed. They wanted, I think there was clear direction that they stay in the back still.
So they had strong coop feelings.
They be in the back.
Yeah, they were.
Unanimous coop feelings.
Yeah.
So with this, it sounds like the coop would need to stay in the backyard, but if they wanted to let their chickens out to roam, they could do so in the front yard as long as it's fenced in.
Correct.
Okay.
Oh.
And actually, there's a few houses in Rio del Mar that I've seen that do that.
So it's like free-range chickens,
chickens,
but they're fenced and they can't go down the sidewalk like the
turkeys. Okay.
Those are
No, I like the free-range chicken thing. I like that's great.
What's
Yeah.
on your dinner tonight?
They're delicious.
So is there consensus to allow that? Unless
Yes.
there's any? Okay, that's a consensus.
Let them roam.
Is it a long list of livestock that's approved?
No, it's a
No.
very short list,
pigs.
like up to 150-pound potbelly pigs.
I love that part.
Ducks.
So pigs fenced in the front yard could roam around under this ordinance?
Yes. Their
Under
pen
150
should be in the
pounds.
backyard.
They don't move fast, I don't think.
Okay with that?
Love it.
Okay.
Anything else? Anything else?
Consensus.
That's it. That's
all you got?
That's all I have.
So what will
Those
we start
were-
with next Wednesday?
So we'll jump right into Capitola Road. And then if you have additional items that you'd like me to,
Vacation rental, vacation overlay zone.
I have a
also.
list, yeah.
I have a list too.
Yeah.
Should I give them to you?
We'll just go through them next week.
Next week? Oh, okay. I'll just give them to you ahead of time. You can think about it.
yeah, it would be helpful to get them ahead of time so I can make slides for each item.
Yep.
And Councilmember Terman, you wanted to speak about down the lighting?
I want to speak about
Well, I
that,
know, I
too.
just wanted it to be the phrase, lighting needs to point down.
Yes.
Doesn't scientifically address how the lighting needs to be designed. So
Yeah.
I sent you, international standards for keeping the sky dark.
Clarification.
And also, we need clarification on, right now, our code reads, so that you cannot see the light from outside the property.
Yes.
That's impossible.
Right.
I think we can all agree, if you put a parking lot light in anywhere, you can see it from across the street.
It's going to diffuse.
It's going to happen. But if you limit the viewing of the point source of light, the light source itself not being visible from somewhere else, that's when you start to get specific, and the engineers will actually understand what you're saying.
And there's two areas in the code that deal with lighting, and so they both have to reflect that. So,
Yeah, and the sensitive, or there are two sections. I'll
there are two
make sure we
sections.
address
Yeah.
that.
I don't know why there's two sections, but there are.
Well, one of them deals with the residential, the adjacent residential.
Oh,
I think there's actually only one. The other one is in the visitor serving zone, which I suspect is a request from the Coastal Commission from the old 1975
okay.
code.
Got it.
And I want to talk about the how you measure the buildings again, and talk about that assumed ground height, because what you might assume might be different than what I assume. I don't know what we're assuming, so I just want to talk about that next time. Maybe we
There's
can
a section-
come up with another word that is a little more
Without moving
concrete.
dirt,
I don't
that's what
know.
it was there before, I think.
Yeah, whatever. I don't. Something that's real clear.
Okay. Any others?
I'll get
I have a
it.
list, so I'll just give it to you.
Any other items people would like to discuss tonight? Announcements?
We do need a motion to continue to the 29th. So I will take
So
a
moved.
motion now.
Second. Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you all very much. Good night, Capitola. Thank you for all your work on this, everybody's work.